average high school student that may have an interest in participating in the shotgun clay target shooting program. Information will be posted on the announcement as far as your contact number and or email. If you're interested in that, I'll tell any officer to get that information. Roll please, stand for the pledge. Allegiance to the flag
Everyone got review? Should be pretty quick. Who's still rolling? Anyone? Cool. I'll let you all go until I see pencil stop moving, so. Womp. I said womp. I said womp. Womp is on other screen. Frank? Fine, be that way. Try again. Come on, Frank. You can do it. You can do it. Hey, there we go. Good job, Frank. Okay. It's from yesterday. All right. Make big. I go to Action. All right, let's start fresh. Maybe you got no idea what that thing looks like. So you toss it in a calculator to see what it looks like. Equivalent to graphing by table. I go y equals. I got x to the fourth minus, was it 8x squared? 8x squared. And I graphify, and I see W. Okay. Now you can change the window to see how low does it go. Not really sure. But I don't actually need that to find my relevant information here. As long as the x values are there when you're trying to find extrema, it's good. So they're down there somewhere. But domain boils down to, are there any things in here that are going to break math law? Do I have x on denominator? Do I have x in even root? Do I have a logarithm? No. So everybody allowed to that party. Domain, all real numbers. Range. That one, I need to find out how low it goes. It's obviously symmetrical, so I'm going to calculate a minimum to find out how low does it go. It appears to be somewhere between -3 and 0. So as long as those arrows are pointing in and that extrema is somewhere down there, I should be able to find it. It's going to say it's down at, come on, Frank. We talked about this back when we reviewed quadratics. Remember, this is round off error because of where we put blinky. Maybe yours said -2.0001 or whatever it might be. So I know that it goes all the way down to -16 for both of those and then continues on to the wild blue yonder. My range, -16 to infinity. If I'm looking for x and y intercepts, x-intercept, I set it equal to 0 and solve. X to the fourth minus x squared equal to 0, GCF. And I get, oh, there's an 8 in there. That's right in front of my face, too. 8x squared, 0. Yeah, that changes things. X squared minus 8. So I'll get x squared, x plus 2 root of 2, x minus 2 root of 2. Or set that part equal to 0, add 8, solve by square roots, right? Same difference. So I'm going to have x-intercepts in 3 places. They're going to be at 0. It just happens twice. That's why it bounces off like a parabola. And plus or minus 2 root of 2. The y-intercept, well, if I plug a 0 in there, 0. So, yint, just 0. Okay. What I'm going to do is, I'm going to say you got the range, you got the domain, you got the x-intercepts, you got the y-intercept. The one floating is for, did you get the bracket? Did you remember plus or minus? Did you actually simplify the radical? All that kind of business. If you didn't put it as a radical at all, nah, you just get one off there. Okay. One floating for the whoopsie. Or maybe you did back here. What if I had the work shown like that and I put plus or minus 1? Well, I see the work. I did the thing right. I just completely forgot there was an 8 there. Okay, one off. Right? Or maybe you said it was plus 8 x squared. That really changes things because now you're looking at it only hits at 0 and then it has a pair of imaginary solutions. So the one floating is for the little whoopsie. Okay? Something out of 5. Because of all the meetings yesterday afternoon and then scrambling to run errands, I just plain forgot to send out an assignment, but we seem to be okay with the graphing stuff, like finding domain and range off of the graph, x and y intercepts, it's all old school. Nothing seemed too strenuous. Everyone seemed to be okay with it. So, bust out the review. Let's go. Starting with, oh, remember, open notes, open everything. You get to tell yourself how to do the test. I have had kids who just space out for 5 days straight, but lock it in on review, and they do okay. Like, you can tell yourself how to do stuff. You are as fully supported for an exam as possible. What else? When it's time for the test, make sure, again, devices put away. I would prefer that they were over on the counter and silent, not no one ever texts me during this hour, not oops, it might buzz, silent or off. And I'm going to have y'all mix yourselves up. We got plenty of room in here. So, oh, and the chapter 0 packet. Okay, it's open notes, open everything. So I didn't need it yet because we're going to have a quiz that has chapter 0 stuff on it still. After this quiz, y'all should be turning in that chapter 0 packet. Yo.
How about like the homework for that?
If you have it in like a notebook or something like that, instead, like it's not in the back, then you just put your packet in the notebook. Normally, I would say just turn that in, and then I will literally grade it immediately after this class on a white day. Because it's a maroon day, I ain't getting to that. Okay? So, if you have your assignment parts in a separate notebook, or your daily checks or whatever, and you don't feel comfortable tearing anything out of there, then just wait and give it to me tomorrow. Okay? Give it to me tomorrow at the end of class, and I'll go through it second hour. Everyone else, if you got everything in the packet, just hand that in. Matrix operations. Before I go moving entire matrices around, I would rather treat this as a literal equation to solve and then just do those operations. So if I turn that into like 2a minus x equals b, How would I get x by its lonesome? Okay. Now I can either subtract 2a over and multiply everything by a negative, or I could subtract b over, add x over. Either way, it's going to result in the same thing, right? I'm going to have x is 2a minus b. So if I know that this is a and this is b, I'm looking at x is 2 times this stuff, 2, -3, -12, 8, 0, 7, plus, minus b, -9, -1, 5, 8, 16, -1. I know you can do stuff in a calculator. I know that you can mental math. I ask that you have something written next to this so that if you're just Samsonite levels of off, I can still give you some partial credit. Okay? So, 4, you know what? I don't like doing a minus a thing. If y'all cool with it, I'm going to turn that into plus, and I'm going to change all these signs. Personally, I think that's safer. A lot like distributing a negative into a polynomial. Instead of subtract the thing, subtract the thing, subtract the thing, subtract the thing. Y'all, I mess up negatives, and I know you do too. I'm going to distribute the negative in because I'm just scared. Let's try that again. 4 plus 9. -6 plus 1. -24 minus 5. 16 minus 8. 0 minus 16. 14 plus 1. Now I just kind of bypassed all of the talk behind it, but how do I know I can even add these things together? Same dimensions, okay? They got to be the same dimensions. Also, order of operations still applies. Do your scalar multiplication by 2 first, then combine the two matrices. Okay? PEMDAS, please execute my deranged adolescent sister, right? You want to make sure that you do everything in order. Don't do that. Sister's not that bad. Okay? We reviewed probability. And the biggest thing in that probability that we had trouble with was combinatorics because many of us had never seen it before. There are 300 squirrels in the park, but only 35 are sober due to fermenting fruit under the trees. Yes, this is actually a thing. What is the probability that of the 20 squirrels captured for observation, exactly 15 are intoxicated? Okay. I'm not joking. For 1 year, we lived in a rental property right across from a city park. My wife and I would like just put out camp chairs and we'd just sit there and watch squirrels. Like they'd try to climb a tree. Or they'd get into like almost like drunken park brawls. Like they'd fight with each other, but they kept falling over. It was hilarious. I've heard of moose in Alaska. They'll get drunk off of rotting apples, like, and then they'll just wander down Main Street and like walk into the grocery store because automatic doors, and they'll go get the munchies. Like this is a thing that happens. This is actually how alcohol was discovered. So, combinatorics. I asked for something very, very specific. I said I'm going to capture 20 of these squirrels. So that sounds like a total number captured is a total number chosen. Does the order in which we grab these drunk little squirrels matter? No. So is it combination or permutation? Okay. How many of them do we have to choose? Okay, 20 of them from, the total is 300. And then I got to look at my two categories, right? My two categories are what? What kind of squirrels are we looking at? Drunk squirrels and sober squirrels. There are 35 sober ones. Okay. How many of those am I going to get? How do you arrive at that number? Because 15 are going to be intoxicated. That means 5 of them are sober. So, how many drunk squirrels are in this park? I heard it. 265. If there's 35 that are sober out of the 300, then there's 265 drunken squirrels. I'm not joking. Like, this is not exaggeration. We watched this. It was funny. Press the buttons. Y'all, please make sure you actually write this. Write it on your paper. Don't just type it in your calculator. I know you can just type it directly in your calculator as you're reading the problem. At least write what you are typing. Because the chances that you mistype something, that you hit the wrong button, you, on most of your calculators, when you're down here typing this 5, if you don't arrow over to say you're done with the combination, it just keeps typing down there. So you got to be careful about how you type it. I would like you to write it so that I can give you partial credit if that goes awry. And what is the probability that we get exactly 15 intoxicated squirrels? Okay. So number 2 on your quiz will also be something related to combinatorics. I was just, again, copy pasting off of old forms of tests over the last how many years. No guarantees whether it's combination or permutation, whether there's 2 categories or 5 categories. I don't think it goes to 5. I think the most I've ever gone is 3. But I'm not going to guarantee that.
Okay.
How do you know the difference between combination versus permutation? Which one's which? Permutation order matters. Okay. The way that I always remembered that, and it doesn't affect your generation nearly as much. I was born 84. My mom would not let go of her hairstyle for way too long. So I remember her getting a perm all the time. Y'all remember perms? Maybe you got an aunt who also would not let that go. Like, y'all, get rid of it. No, it is the 21st century. I always remembered perm versus comb. Permutation combination. With a perm, the order you do it in matters or else your hair falls out. With a comb, it just matters that you did it. Did you comb your hair? Yeah, worked for me. Probably not for you because you didn't have to sit through the hell of all those chemicals in the house. Box and whisker plot of the data. Describe it as consistent or inconsistent using mean and standard deviation. How do I put data into my calculatron? Stat edit. Start typing, and I strongly recommend that you put next to this triple check data. You don't want to get this wrong just because you accidentally said 53 instead of 35. Okay? 7, 0, enter. 5, 0, enter. 3, 0, enter. 4, 0, enter. Okay. Also, count out your data. Make sure that you got the right number of entries on there. There were a couple on this list that were repeated. Man, that would suck if you only did 30 twice. Do you have all 9 entries? Is your data solid? And then I'm going to go back to y equals. I'm going to get rid of my function here. If I want my box and whisker plot, 2 ways to do it. One is to go get your 5-number summary, do it manually. The other is what? I'm going to graph it. How do I graph specifically this if it's not in Y1? Okay, right above Y equals is my stat plot. I can turn plot 1 on. We're going to do it this way because I'm a big kid now. Make sure that you're on the regular box and whisker plot, not the one that eliminates outliers. Okay, cool. And I hit graph, and nothing happens. Okay, my data was all up in the 30s and 40s, so I either need to manually change my window or zoom to my statistics. So what I mean by graph and label is not just, don't just make a generic box and whisker plot. Make sure it's proportional. See how quartile 4 is much bigger than any of the others. See how quartile 2 is smaller than quartile 3. Make sure that it's proportional when you sketch it. Doesn't have to be a full artist rendition, but I should at least have that. All right, so I'm going to trace, and that's going to get me my special numbers here. I've got 15, 30, 35, 45, and 70. This is not fully labeled yet. Those are just numbers. You have to tell me what they mean. So when you sketch it, make sure you say this is minimum, quartile 1, median, quartile 3, and maximum. Yo.
I'm on this.
Ruh-roh, Raggy. Stat, edit, data, stat plot on, correct. Okay, you need to zoom to your statistics. Option 9.
Okay.
Ba-dum-bum.
Thank you.
Yep, yep. Write down all those, write down the buttons, okay? You have a key log there where you get to tell yourself what to do. Now, it's not just sketch and label this, it also says to describe your data as consistent or inconsistent using the standard deviation. I know that y'all don't have a ton of experience with that, but we talked about my standard deviation under normal data should be about 15% of the mean. Suppose if I'm gonna write percent, I shouldn't put the decimal on there, huh? That's considered normal. If I get something that is like 10% of the mean, I'd consider it relatively consistent. If I get something that's like 5% of the mean, that is very, very consistent data. Okay, if I'm at like 20, 25%, that's inconsistent. I'm at 30 plus, this crap's all over the place. So, how do I find those numbers? Stat calculate. Stat calculate, one variable stats. I do not need a frequency list because I don't have enough data. Ba-da-ba-da-bop. So I've got a mean at 37.778. I have a standard deviation at about 14.551. Just looking at those two numbers, is 15-ish going to be more or less than 15% of 38-ish? Way more. It's going to be like 40% plus. Now you just go back to the main screen and you do 14 and change divided by 37 and change, and it tells you a number way bigger than 15%. So what I want you doing is you'd write these two values so that I know you found them correctly, and then you would say it is very inconsistent. I would just write out inconsistent, because if you try to abbreviate it, it might look like you're saying it's very incontinent. No one knows what incontinent means, do you? It means you can't control your bowels. My data set's crapping all over the place. So, you notice this is about one question per section. After that, we talked about some domain and range. We talked about function analysis. Yo. What? Who? Review? Right there. It's quiz day. If you still don't have the chapter 1 packet, bro, it should be in the back there. All right. Domain and range in careful, set builder, and interval notation. Every year, I have kids who will do one or the other and they forget half of the problem. Okay. Make sure it actually says review and it's not my pile of original copies. Okay. So, if I'm going to look at my domain, I'm just coming across my x-axis here and asking, when does it start existing? See that arrow going off into the wild blue yonder? It starts existing back at negative infinity. Okay, so if I'm following this line, closed circle, or open circle, sorry. But there's a closed one down here. Okay, so it still exists. I'm going to follow this guy all the way until 1, open circle. Well, there's a closed circle there. So I'm going to follow that line and get, oh wait, my domain is all real numbers. In interval notation, that's just negative infinity to infinity. I don't know that we've actually run across this. How do I write all real numbers in set builder notation? All x's such that, what's my rule? Yes. I would skip straight to x as an element of the real. And honestly, I don't need to do a full set builder notation if it is the entire real number set. I could just do this. Kind of like, remember when we got 6 and I said don't use bracket 6, 6 bracket? It was overkill. This is also overkill because that symbol means the entire set of real numbers. So I'd take either one. How's about range? Okay, when does it start? So it starts at -4, following that parabola until, open circle. Still exists over here. Keep going. All the way, does it actually touch 0 or not? We assume that it touches 0 because there isn't an open circle to tell me it doesn't. I could be staring at that thing all day and never be able to tell exactly where it is. I've just got to assume it touches 0. Okay, so my range goes from -4 to 0, union We jump up to 1, and we follow that guy until, open circle. That guy goes to infinity and beyond. So I'm going to say also 1 to infinity. I saw a lot more kids between the two classes. It just kind of clicked into place once I started shading on the axes themselves. That made a little more sense. It seemed to make more sense for kids than having the pencil test. Because if I do the pencil test and go across, we have a tendency to look up and down when we're actually checking out X's. And this seemed to work better, but you do you. Okay? Yeah. You just put a Y's instead of X. So I'm going to say all Y is such that I'm from here to here. How do I write that? How do I say it's greater than or equal to this guy, but less than or equal to this guy? In between the two, there will be an or because of my union. The weird thingies. Y'all remember the and sandwich? Where you put the small number here, the big number there, it's sandwiched in between? Okay, compound inequalities. This is -4 is less than or equal to y is less than or equal to 0. And you do want all of the Pac-Man, all of the sharks, all the alligators, whatever you call them, the inequalities should all still be eating to the right because that's where the big numbers are. Bigger numbers are to the right. Or, because there is a union, what's the other rule? I mean, you're not wrong, but we usually say it the other way. We'd say y is greater than or equal to 1. Like, I don't know if y'all heard that. He said 1 is less than or equal to y. That's not wrong, right? Y is that way. But we normally write it like y is greater than or equal to 1. What sets am I allowed to be in? Like, I would take that. Okay? You're not wrong. I would take that. And again, we're in all real numbers. Y is an element of the reals. I don't know if I ever talked about how these are scored, but it's usually 6 questions. Sometimes I got to go down to 5 or even 4 because of the length of time they take. But basically, it's always out of 30. Something out of 30. So right now, every one of these questions is worth 5. Just like our daily checks. Like, I want you to, you should never be surprised by what's happening. Okay? Now, you might be surprised by the grade afterwards, and then you're going to look at it and you're going to see a bunch of stuff like that next to one of your problems. Uh-oh, 1 off, domino effect. Everything after this is wrong. But I only took 1 off. Or you're going to see this. Our Algebra 2 veterans hate that one. Forgot to reduce. Okay, it's just every little tick mark, there was something wrong here. Okay, but I do them out of 5 just like our daily checks. It's just nice and easy. 5, we spent, between the 2 days, we spent about half a class, full class, talking about graph analysis. I got a big old honking function there, and it says the annual visitors to a park, 2000 through 2008. X is number of years since 2000. How many were in 2006? What year did they pass 20,000? So notice it doesn't say anything about estimate. We're going to find them for real. How do I algebraically find in 2006 my number of visitors? 2006, is that X or Y? Okay. Then read X-axis. So I'm looking for, not 2006, 6. Where do I put 6? It's my input. It's my years. It even says it right here. X is years. So I'm going to plug 6 into that function. You know what? I'm going to type that function in because I don't want to mental math. In fact, don't trust myself to mental math right now. So I go to y equals, what's that? 05.51. So 0.05x cubed minus 0.51x squared, 1.81, 1.81x plus 13.35. Double check, okay. Now, remember that I can change the window of my graph on here to exactly match the window on the graph on the paper. I would go to Window and say, if this graph goes from 0 to 10, I'm going to go from 0 to 10. Every box is worth 1, I'm going to go by ones. If they go from 0 to 23, right? Oh, do they go from 0 to 23? Y'all remember that little lightning bolt break in the graph? What's that mean? I'm a jump. Okay, instead, I'm going to go from 15 upward. So if they're going by ones, I'm actually going to go to 14 because then it'll kind of match the graph a little bit better. 14 up to 23 going by ones. Graph of off. And there we go. Okay, I went 14 to 23 just because, see how it's got a little lightning bolt to jump up to 15, but I wanted to go one below that so I could see where it started curving. So, because if I started at 15, it's going to look like this. You're never going to see the downward trail on it. It wasn't necessary because I can just trace to 6. Oh no! I hit trace 6 and my calculator quit. Let's try that again. Trace. Look at what it's on right now. Look at the top of the screen. Oh, sneaky, sneaky. I need to go down to this. You arrow up and down to switch between functions. This is also why I would like to eliminate that. Yeah, trace. If you turn off the plot, it won't be a problem at all.
What do I change the window to?
The same, that.
Oh.
0 to 10, 0 to 23, or because that little lightning break, we did 14 to 23. Okay, so I can trace out 6, poke. It says 16.65. There were 16 and one really short person visitors in this park. What? What does 16.65 mean? Maybe I should read the scale. Thousands. So I'm going to say that there were 16, move that 1, 2, 3 places, 650 visitors. And they're asking, when did the visitors hit, what was it, 20,000? Okay. Probably one of the quicker ways to do that is just put 20,000 into the second y. Do I put 20,000?
The scale is in like.
It says by thousands, right? So just put 20. Graph-a-fa. Go find yourself an intersection.
This is the kind of stuff that if you showed someone that was in Algebra 1, they'd be like, that's cheating.
That's why we never show Algebra 1 how to use graphing calculators. Photomath and Slater are bad enough. Right, Levi? I'm going to find my intersection between curve 1 and curve 2. Said your hair looks nice. And I don't care about the guess. We're just going to go straight for answer. How do I say that? What is my answer? I hit 20,000 visitors when?
2007.
I would say in 2007. If you got a little extra time and you want to show off, go ahead. I am not going to require it. If you just say in 2007, we're fine. I did have a kid on a previous test go down to picoseconds. Guess who?
That's so tracks, though. That's a bad person.
Okay. Just say in 2007 and we're good.
He's at Stanford right now.
Even past microseconds. Dude just kept going. He was just showing off.
He sends spreadsheets to organize friend events, like group events.
Oh. Okay. Later on this year, we're going to do stuff about coterminal angles, where this is the angle and this is the negative coterminal angle. To draw the positive coterminal, you go all the way around and try again. It's just adding and subtracting 360 or 2 pi. I said, technically, everything is a coterminal angle if you keep going.
Oh.
Right?
I know the story.
This same kid wanted to do, like, what was it, 100 laps? And I told everyone, if you want to be that pedantic, I am counting rings. You better make sure that you have 100. Got one wrong, and he was so mad. Yeah, like 101 laps. Anyway, find the zeros, y-intercepts of the function. Hey, we just finished this. How do I find the zeros of a function? No. Set equal to 0, right? Zeros I set equal to 0. I'm finding x-intercepts. So if I put a 0 in here, I got 15 minus 8 over 3x minus 2. Okay, get x by itself. What do you do? Okay. I'm going to, personally, I'll get rid of 15 first. Negative 15 is negative 8 over 3x minus 2. I'm going to make my life easier by just multiplying both sides by a negative right now. So it's positive 15, positive 8. How do you solve? 15 equals 8 over 3x minus 2.
If you times it by negative, what if that was 3x plus 2?
No. If you multiplied numerator and denominator by negative, you multiplied by negative, negative.
Oh,
You multiplied by 1, not negative 1, because you used a pair of negatives instead of one negative. No, that's a good question. Ask. Get those, okay? You should remember these from, oh boy, this is like algebra half. This is geometry, similar triangles, rational expressions and equations from algebra 2. It's Jesus fish. Multiply the two that line up, divide by the one that doesn't. Multiply the two that line up, divide by the one that doesn't. Snack that smiles back, right? I can say 3x minus 2 is 8 divided by 15. I could do it that way, or just cross multiply solve. They're the same thing. Literally the same thing. Y'all have passed algebra half. Y'all passed algebra 2. It's a ratio. Ratios are solved by cross multiplication. Or sorry, a proportion. 8 times 1. 15 times stuff. Cross multiplying. Okay. If I multiply this side by 3x minus 2 and this side by 3x minus 2, these will cancel. I'll get 15 times this junk equals 8. We shortcut that by saying cross multiply. I'm just getting that off the denominator. Okay? Also, you should have learned with ratios and proportions when you did similar right triangles in geometry that you can swap the means and extremes at any point. That can also be D over B is C over A. You can swap means and extremes at any time, which allows me to just swap those and turn it into 3x minus 2 as 8/15, which is what I had by Jesus Fish cross multiplication. All of this is like the last 3.5 years. Okay? I think we can solve that. Add 30, divide by 45. X is 38 over 45, which cannot be reduced. Also, y'all passed algebra 2. I'll tell you right now, the type of function that you get for any form of the test, it's not going to be a rational function like this. It's going to be a grab bag of whatever you might have had. It might be a quadratic, might be a cubic, might be a radical, might be a square root, cube root. It might be a absolute value. Like, you've done all this stuff. It's going to be some sort of function. Plug 0 in for y and solve. Okay?
Wouldn't it be x equals negative 22 or 45? Because that's going to be negative.
Add 30.
Add the wrong side.
Okay. Y-intercept. How do you find y-intercept? 0 in for x. That one's a little cleaner. 15 minus 8 over 3 times 0 minus 2. Well, 0 minus 2 is negative 2. 8 divided by negative 2 is negative 4. 15 minus negative 4 is 19. And then find the function of input this junk. You know where it goes. It's just a matter of can you simplify it after that. Okay? Now we worked with a couple of different types of functions and simplifying them. If it's rational, make sure that you factor your final result to see if anything cancels. If it's a radical, see if you can factor within the radical to take anything out of radical. All that stuff. If I have the function of thing, it's 15 minus 8 over 3 by thing minus 2. Get rid of this. It's unnecessary. Okay, we're plugging in a 4a minus 7. Distribute combine like terms equals 15 minus 8 over 3 by stuff is 12a minus 21 minus 2 is minus 23. Can I simplify that rational part on the right? Do all three of them share a factor? All three of those terms do not share a factor. If this was like 24 or 22, then I could, but in this case I can't. Just watch out for that. If you really wanted to, y'all remember doing common denominators with these? If you wanted to take it further, you can take this times 12a minus 23 to get a bunch of junk over 12a minus 23. It's not required, I won't make you, but that is correct answer. They're both correct answers. It's just how far you want to go.
So, can we leave this?
Yeah, I'm cool with that. Just as long as it's simplified, we're okay.
Wait, you can leave it at that?
Yeah.
Would it also work to, I would probably know the answer if I had watched the lecture, but would it also work to have, like a equals 38 over 45 plus 7 over 4, like, and evaluate, like, the x's?
No,
Yeah, but that's 0. Never mind. I'm tripping.
you're just making up a value for a. This was x-intercept. Nope, just leave it in variable town.
Is that f of x with that value just using that value to determine, like?
Yeah, I'm pressing the 4a minus 7 button. This is what comes out.
Okay, so it's just like a, like where x
Yeah.
is it doing that? Okay.
Devices away. Mix yourselves up. Don't be at the same table as people you're normally sitting with. We've got plenty of space. Wiggle yourself around. Okay, mix it up. Their library, I don't care. That's how much time I have. Except for